we start? Hey, everybody. It will be easy to distinct myself from the very good speech that we had before, because, first of all, it's a little bit of more a grumpy future that I will have to talk about, and the crisis and the role of Ukraine in it, but also something where, because you're a little bit running late, I'm coming immediately to the point. And the point actually is not about Ukraine, but it's about talking about you and me and the future of conflict and crisis. You and me as individuals and inhabitants of cities, but also as subjects and targets of current and future crisis. And just to acknowledge that at the beginning, even if we talk about, or if we were meant to talk about Ukraine or war, we are currently, and that refers, I guess, to the speaker before the last speaker, we are already in a triple crisis. So we have conflict in Ukraine, which is the most visible one for everybody, but we have still an ongoing or potential corona crisis, and we have the climate crisis as well. All these things are no longer future issues. They are with us, and they are basically challenging our decision-making and our everyday life. And the main challenge, if you look into your future as an inhabitant of cities or as an active citizen, is to understand that security is not a zero-sum game. You cannot choose to be resilient vis-à-vis climate change, but basically spend nothing on defense or say cybersecurity is nothing that should matter for me. There is no choice in investing into your security, actually. The most important thing about war is, and I guess that makes it so fascinating for so many people, is, at least in times of crisis, so when real war breaks out, it is one of the most complex events, or the complex event, and it is a direct threat to life. But this is not what I'm going to talk to you about now. So what is happening to the people in Ukraine? Why not? Because the bigger picture is that this war is only one phenomenon within a bigger change in Europe and the European order. And that is the changing order from peace to conflict. The war as such is something where you can easily say we have been unable to read the signals of the past. 2014 was the first war of Russia on Ukraine. And it didn't induce the necessary change to prevent the war in 2022. And that's why we are here today, looking into this war. But as I said, I want to talk about the bigger picture. And the bigger picture is we are running into something that is called, in those communities I'm working most of the time, a systemic conflict. And this systemic conflict is about no longer a military conflict, as you can currently see it, which is the most visible part of what is happening in Ukraine. It is about everything that happens in your daily life. It's about economics, it's about the civilian infrastructure, it's about targeting individuals. The other effect of this systemic conflict is that the distinction, the classic distinction between war and peace is no longer possible. So you're living actually in a constant state of changing degrees of conflict. And, as I said, these conflicts are being extended actively and decisively across every sphere of life that matters to you, that matters to public domain, etc., etc. And just to make this clear, this is not an accident. Those who are attacking us today and in the future have clear objectives. That is about destroying our internal structures. That is social cohesion, democratic institutions, freedom, the plurality of life, and all those where the basic critical infrastructures are below this. And this is interesting, looking into the funders of this event. This is all about traffic, energy, etc., etc. All those things that you currently see are targeted in Ukraine are not the foundations of military activity. They are the foundations of your everyday civilian life. And just to be clear, this is nothing that will be limited to any space because, or to any geographical space, because if you are successful as an attacker, then of course you will learn from that and will take this way forward to basically try to achieve your objectives, whatever they are. So this is not only about a conflict with Russia, it's also about future conflicts, for example, with China. This doesn't need to be a military conflict. I'm not talking about a military conflict here. It's much more about the ability of coercion and of the inability of us as Europeans, as Germans, as inhabitants of Berlin, of taking free decisions on our own lives. And I guess this is the most challenging thing, especially, I think I need to put this into, as this is an international community sitting here, especially as a German, if you take a look on why are those foreign forces are so successful, the answer is simple, but makes a rather complex problem for us. It is because the other actors are so capable of combining all the different domains, all the different areas. They are able to bring to all the different battlefields their effects because they are able to coordinate themselves. And this is especially if you live in a federal country like Germany, where power is distributed across so many different levels, difficult to imagine how to engage with such challenges coming from the outside. So if you take this as the starting point, what basically to do? It is no longer a strategy for security or whatever you would like to talk it, or to achieve peace. It is about a strategy of conflict that entails, and that also comes on top of it, that entails the adaptation to disruptive change. What I've said before, the distinction or the distance between 2014, the first Russian war in Ukraine, and 2022 is a time of missed learning, and also a time where the environment around Europe has continued to change. So it's no longer about the objectives of peace or whatever you want to have in 2024, in 2014, and not in 2022. It's about where do we want to live in the future, and how do we extrapolate our future, and how can we achieve these objectives against the active will of others. And I guess that is, especially me being kind of genetically and socially German, is something that we haven't thought about the last 30 years. So this is something where the disruptive change outside Germany is basically challenging or demands disruptive change inside Germany. If we don't do it, others will bring this change to us, as it has happened in Ukraine lately. What does it mean for cities and people? Coming to the last point. Cities are only one part in delivering 360-degree security, but they are an essential part. Cities deliver public services, kind of on the last meter, if you want to. So cities inhabit the most critical infrastructures, but they are also the space, the social space for participation in democracy. And there you can already see the challenges that are upcoming. It's not only the technical infrastructure, which is at least easy to define, not easy to fix the problems, but at least easy to define where the challenges are. It is about making cities and metropolitan areas where participation in democracy can take place. Because social unrest is, of course, the biggest target for social unrest are metropolitan areas, because they are a kind of a hub for potential problems, and basically can have, through different ways, be it media or whatever, effects to the whole country. The way towards that is actually empowering people. And that's nothing that a federal government likes to hear, because it means giving power away. But the fact is that this power has been lost already. If Germany wants to be safer, we need everybody of you as a security agent, and especially because on your weakest point, which is this one, which is the most critical infrastructure that everybody has in its pocket. It's sending information, it's sending geodata, it's sending everything where you are and it can find you on many levels. So this is something where power needs to be given back to the people, and the empowerment, be it in the cyber domain, be it in the information domain. There's another potential that cities have, which is city diplomacy. We have seen examples, especially during the Trump era, where cities have taken up their own role in communicating below the federal levels with other societies and other cities on issues of common interest. This is something that would allow us to have a second layer in diplomacy, which to a certain extent can be independent of what national governments have to do. And third, and that is at least a hope or a dream, is new city partnerships. Why not having more partnerships, for example, with Kiev or other cities, in, on the one hand, helping them to get back on their feet with their infrastructure, but at the same time, learning from them. Because if we take a look into those countries who are currently under threat, they still have to offer something, not only in terms of, solidarity, but also in terms of what they have learned already, be it from the war and how do you become resilient, or, especially if you take a look into Ukraine, how you can become successfully a digital society and still have solidarity in times of war and not being split up by that. I'm not sure whether this is a positive end. I hope it is. I can only wish that you can take something from there, but for me it's most important that in societies that we all live in that are becoming more and more individualistic, it is necessary to understand that even your individual security, coming back to that, cannot be split up. You cannot choose, especially if you take a look back to the triple crisis that I have just described, which is not a crisis of the future, it's a crisis of today. Thank you for your attention.